I did realize that I left the microphone on while uh, I was playing the commercials. So you guys probably heard me talking to my daughter. My daughter, she is opting not to have another surgery for her shunt. She is going still having headaches, and the hospital offered to give her another put another monitor in her head so they can make sure that it is not shunt related. And we opted not to do that. We opted to go to a headache specialist, find someone that deals with headaches, and then try to deal with it the conventional way, because headaches happen. I mean, a lot of people have chronic headaches, but since she's had so many head surgeries, especially in the past year, we don't know if it's because her head still needs time to heal or what the situation is. But unfortunately, it's a tough thing to deal with. And we are still, fighting and praying and having faith that it's going to get better. That's what it is. We're going to have faith that it's going to get better. We don't want, to continue to worry about, you know, will she need another surgery, especially if it looks like the shunt is working. And it does look like the shunt is working. It's probably a case of maybe nerve damage causing the headaches. We're not really sure, but she has chronic headaches now, and that is a concern. So if you could keep my family in your prayers. I am a God-fearing man. I believe that God does answer prayers. So if you could keep us and my family in your prayers, that would be very much greatly appreciated. So let's continue with our last story of the day. The opioid epidemic is out of control. I was going over the news, to figure out what I was going to talk about today. And unfortunately, I came across a really sad story. A father and son in Brooklyn die of apparent overdoses after birthday party. This was a difficult story that I read. A father and son in Brooklyn told their significant others they were going outside for a late night smoke following a birthday party, and then died of an apparent drug overdose, police said. Joseph Adrande and his son, 44, and his son Carlos, 22, had been inside with their wife and girlfriend at an apartment on 27th Street near 4th Avenue in Greenwood, New York, when they both excused themselves around 3 a.m. Carlos and his girlfriend were visiting from Maryland with their children ages 1 and 4, according to a relative who refused to identify themselves. It's not clear whose birthday was being celebrated. The two men said they were going outside to smoke cigarettes but never returned. The women eventually grew nervous, went outside to look for them, and found the two laying in the street in front of the building. The son's body was discovered just inside the doorway, a relative said. He was blue in the face. The woman called 911, and responding officers administered Narcan, a drug that reverses the effects of an overdose, and rushed them to Lutheran Medical, where they died. Police sources said it's believed the men may have snorted a mixture of heroin and fentanyl. This story is especially tragic to me. It's very sad. The family was visiting from Maryland. The son was, his girlfriend and two kids, 1 and 4. Now the girlfriend with kids 1 and 4 will have to return home if she can afford it. Will have to return home to Maryland, a single parent. And the man's mother lost her son and her husband on the same day. When I say that the opioid epidemic is an epidemic, I am not lying. I am not exaggerating. I am not sensationalizing that phrase. This is an epidemic of monstrous proportions. You can only pray for people who are stricken with this illness, who are stricken with this addiction. And I was like, maybe I don't know if I should do this story when I was reading about it. As a matter of fact, this has to be one of the saddest stories of the year for me, at least. So what I decided to do is I said, I'm going to pass on this story. I said, I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm not going to do a story on it or have a commentary for it. So then I went to another story in Georgia. No, I'm sorry, not in Georgia. I'm sorry, in Georgia. So I got to get it together. 20 seconds is all it took to kill 19-year-old Dustin Manning. His devastated parents, Greg and Lisa Manning, said the toxicology report found he had taken a toxic mix of heroin and fentanyl, a synthetic opioid so powerful it's often fatal, which is the same drug that was believed that the father and son took in Brooklyn. The amount of fentanyl in his body was the equivalent of 3 grains of salt, and that's all it took to kill an 180-pound guy, said Greg Manning. Dustin died Friday, May 26, in Lawrenceville, a suburb on the outskirts of Atlanta. At 6:09 a.m., paramedics were called to a home with reports of an unresponsive teenager. Dustin was dead. I had told him I'd get him up early for work, and I came up around 5:45 to wake him up, and when I opened the door, he looked like he was tying his shoes. Very quickly, I realized, grabbed him, and he was cold. Lisa Manning was at the gym when she got the call from her husband. He said, oh my God, call 911. I didn't ask, I just knew. Less than an hour later, at 6:53 a.m., another phone call was placed to 911. Half a mile down the road, 18-year-old Joseph Abraham was found slumped on the floor by his parents, Dave and Kathy. He had no pulse. I started yelling and yelling and yelling. As soon as I saw him, I knew, and I just ran, and I just started holding him, and I could tell he was cold, said Kathy Abraham. These two men that I'm reading about were childhood friends. They have played on the same Little League team for 2 years. Joseph's father coached them. But in middle school, both began to dabble in drugs. So now we have another tragic story. And that's when I started to feel like, after that one, I'd have to continue to talk about opioids. The awareness for this drug, fentanyl, has to get put out there. It's too dangerous. The amount of drugs the size of a couple grains of salt is enough to kill a nearly 200-pound man. That is insane. How do you go visit your dad with your girlfriend and children and die of a drug overdose with no one else but your father? It's the opioid epidemic. I don't know what causes someone to make a decision to start using drugs, but once anyone makes that decision to take that first hit or that first pill or even that first puff of that cigarette, it changes your life forever. And unfortunately, the girlfriend of that 22-year-old who died and that 22-year-old's mother His life has changed forever because of the bad decisions made by these two men who were hopelessly addicted to opioids. Two childhood friends that died a little more than blocks from each other were also best friends who also died from opioid use. To me, that's unacceptable. The opioid epidemic is an epidemic that is getting worse and worse. I don't even see how they're going to clean this mess up. President Trump said he plans on declaring that the opioid epidemic is a national emergency, but so far, no funding or direction in addressing the epidemic has been revealed. All we can do is hope and pray that this is done away with. I don't know how. I don't know when. I don't know what they're going to do. It is a war on drugs. But I think that this war is going to have to be fought completely differently to be effective. And in the final story, also out of Georgia, a 2-year-old boy was blocked from getting his father's kidney because the father violated his probation. Georgia boy 2, blocked from getting father's kidney, is rushed to the hospital. A 2-year-old Georgia boy who was unable to receive his father's kidney for a transplant, apparently because the man had violated his probation, was rushed to an emergency room Sunday morning after suffering an abdominal infection. Anthony Dickerson Jr., who was born without kidneys, made headlines earlier this month when it was reported the toddler couldn't receive a kidney from his father, Anthony Dickerson, 26, over the probation violation in September. Emory Hospital in Atlanta reportedly worked on behalf of Dickerson, who was in jail, to request that he be escorted to the hospital for blood work and pre-operative testing. Anthony's mother, Camelia Burgess, said that days after testing, she received a letter from the hospital saying that her son's surgery would be delayed until Dickerson complied with his parole officer after 3 months. They're making this about her dad, Burgess said. It's not about the dad, it's about our son. A petition created by Burgess requesting that Emory Hospital allows Anthony to donate his kidney to his son has more than 52,000 signatures. A vigil for Anthony was scheduled for Sunday evening at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. So, here's the thing. I don't know what the probation violation was for, but as fathers, as men, we have to become more responsible. Do I think it's right for the probation officer to withhold this man from delivering a kidney to his son? Absolutely not. I think this is gross misjustice. If he gets released to go and do the blood work, donate a kidney, and then goes back to jail, I don't see how that's harmful, especially if it's saving a life. But if this is going to cost his son his life, the blood is on the father's hands too. The father made the decision to violate whatever and commit whatever crime he decided to commit, knowing that he was going to be a father. Now his bad decision puts his son's life in jeopardy. This is a gross misjustice, but this is also on the father's hands as well. It doesn't matter. We have to be more responsible. We have to know that in this country, things will be unfair for black men. and you will not be afforded everything, even if it makes sense. So why put yourself in a position where you would have to be at the mercy of a probation officer? No, the probation officer didn't go and just randomly pick someone and say, I want him to be at the beck and call and under the mercy of me. No, it was his acts that got him arrested and got himself put in this position. Still, I signed the petition to have them and have the hospital continue to fight for Mr. Dickerson for that baby to get that kidney. First, I didn't even know that an adult can donate a kidney to a child. How does that work? But at the end of the day, the responsibility of doing whatever you can for that child is ultimately on the father. Rules being fair or not, he deserves some of the blame. It's weird to me. Do the transplant, terminate and arrest the judge. This is what a texter wrote. Get over to the judge's residence and swarm the area with protesters. When this hits national media, the judge will be overruled. I don't think the judge will be overruled in this case. Another texter says, why should the baby suffer because the father has a probation violation? Really? And didn't Bradley Manning get a sex change while he was in jail? So a sex change is permissible, but saving a baby's life is not worthwhile? I think that Bradley Manning got hormones in jail. I don't think Bradley Manning got an actual sex change. I don't think that has happened in jail yet, where you can get a sex change operation in prison. Hormone therapy, maybe. I think that's the difference. Either way, my thoughts and prayers goes out to this poor baby. Another texter says, sorry, Carmelia. Sometimes things like this happens when you make poor choices for a baby daddy. Dang. That was cruel. Cruel and unusual, Shelton WA111. The most I could do is just pray for this baby in Georgia. And Anthony Dickerson Jr., I really hope that you continue to fight, and I hope they find another kidney, and if not, I hope somehow a miracle happens and your father is able to donate his kidney to you. However, Father, shame on you, and I hope this is a learning lesson to stay out of trouble. And that's all I got. This is your boy Truth of the Truth in an AM. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. I will see you guys tomorrow. Trooper Joe will be in his house. Tomorrow's Tuesday, so that is also Voice of the Voiceless Tuesday. It's your boy Truth It. Positive vibes. I'll holler.